April 2nd, 1978, began like any other Sunday on the sleepy scrap of land known as Bell Island. Its few scattered residents were waking up and starting their days, when suddenly an enormous blast from an unknown source sent a shockwave through the morning stillness. A boom that could be felt and heard rattled the landscape, damaging buildings and causing appliances and television sets to explode within people's homes. Eyewitnesses reported seeing strange orbs and beams of light in the sky and hearing a high buzzing sound immediately following the blast. Others reported visible metallic-looking dust in the air. The sound of the 2 to 4 second blast echoed across an area of 100 kilometers. The locals, concerned about everyone's well-being, as well as the cause of the damage, began to search the island for answers. No source for the explosion could be found, however, leaving both the island's inhabitants and the scientific community at large stunned. What could have been behind such a rapid and destructive event? Some unforeseen natural disaster? A collapse of the highly concentrated iron mines beneath the island? Or, more ominously, was it the effect of some new kind of magnetic weapon? The blast on Bell Island was actually just one severe instance in a string of similar unexplained events that occurred up and down the eastern North American seaboard beginning in December 1977. Roughly 600 separate reports were made in 1977 and 1978 of blasts or explosions with no identifiable source, and their frequency and severity raised concerns that there was some nefarious and secret military activity taking place. Eventually, then U.S. President Jimmy Carter intervened, asking the Department of Defense to look into the cause of the mysterious booms. The DoD passed the task along to the Naval Research Board, who, after 3 months, reported back on their findings. The board concluded that the booms could be reasonably attributed to the flight paths of the supersonic jet Concorde, which debuted in 1976 and flew frequent transatlantic flights in and out of New York and Washington, D.C. The theory was that when the Concorde broke the sound barrier, it created a sonic boom, and that the boom was reflected off the atmosphere and sent downwards to the Earth below. The board recommended changing flight paths for supersonic jets so that they did not cross the sound barrier until they were further out at sea. The Concorde theory could be reasonably used to explain 400 of the roughly 600 reported mystery booms, but skeptics within the scientific community remained concerned about approximately 1/8 of the reports that were inconsistent and could not be explained by air traffic data. The most prominent among them was Columbia University's Chief of Atmospheric Science, Dr. William Don, who called the veracity of the reports into question, stating that several of the booms were too loud to be caused by supersonic jets. He also cited the, quote, nocturnal balls of light in the sky associated with booms, seen by respectable and responsible authorities, like airplane pilots. The supersonic jet theory offered no explanation for these strange sightings that accompanied the blasts. Some began to believe that the U.S. military may have been involved, and that the blast was the result of some kind of weapons test. Still others believed that a secret hypersonic aircraft was being tested over the ocean, or worried that a Soviet Air Force or space program had found their way to circumvent North American defenses. Yet, the U.S. government dismissed these possibilities, along with Don's concerns, and accepted the board's findings linking the booms to the Concorde. As a result, flight paths were changed, and the number of blasts over the next few months dropped dramatically, and the panic surrounding the issue mostly died down. In retrospect, this period could be looked at as the calm before the storm. Bell Island is a small island, measuring roughly 6 miles long and 2 miles wide, that sits in Conception Bay on the southeastern coast of Newfoundland. Originally populated by an unidentified archaic seafaring people, it was eventually settled by Europeans in the 18th century, who created small and quiet communities of farmers and fishermen. Tucked away on an island within the bay of another island, the settlement was mostly removed from the affairs of mainland North America. But Bell Island eventually received a great deal of attention in 1890, when a wealth of quality iron ore deposits discovered beneath it led to a mine being opened by the Dominion Steel and Coal Company. The mines were dug below sea level and required constant pumping to avoid flooding. Eventually, the mines would become a haunting tangle of leaky shafts and was one of the largest and most expensive underwater mines in the world. The mines were even attacked by a German submarine during World War II, making them the only North American location to be deliberately attacked by the Germans during the war. It continued to operate and produce iron until 1966, when maintenance costs and cheaper alternative options for iron forced the mine to close. The population on the island dwindled again, leaving behind a nearly vacant community of farmers and fishermen. Its economy shrunk, and as if all this wasn't enough, Scientists began to worry that the abandoned mining tunnels that were dug beneath the island were likely to eventually cave in, concerns that continue to be raised to this day. Immediately following the Belle Island boom of April 2nd, calls about the explosion began pouring into local police and fire departments. The reports were littered with strange details, like the spontaneous explosions of appliances that indicated some kind of electrical event. One island resident, a Mr. Bennett, reported his television exploding and small jets of blue flame emitting from the power outlets in his walls. Also, as in some of the blasts that preceded it, many on the island reported seeing visible orbs or beams of light in the sky during and after the event. In sorting through the wreckage in the immediate wake of the boom that morning, it was determined that the epicenter of the damage seemed to be on the Bickford family's property in the middle of the island. James Bickford, the family patriarch, witnessed similar damage to the appliances in his home, noting that his fuse box had also exploded, and that the force of it had sent the glass fuses whizzing out of the box like bullets. But the damage to the Bickford home went beyond the electrical. As Mr. Bickford stepped outside to survey the property, he noticed that holes had been torn into their roof, and that several large holes that looked like craters were visible on the lawn. Their chicken coop had also been destroyed in the blast, and the chickens within had all been killed. Down the street, young Darren Bickford had been riding his bicycle when the blast occurred and witnessed the hovering orbs of light in the sky. He thought the island had been attacked with atomic weapons. The United States and Canadian Defense Departments became quickly involved, sending researchers to Newfoundland on the day after the blast to investigate. The Canadian scientists involved determined from the evidence available that the blast was not the result of supersonic jets, the leading theory at the time. Meanwhile, John Warren and Robert Freeman of the U.S.'s Los Alamos Scientific Laboratory began their concurrent investigation. The involvement of, quote, men in black raised eyebrows. The Los Alamos Laboratory had been used predominantly as a weapons lab and was in fact responsible for the development of the atomic bomb. At the time of the Belle Island boom, it was heavily rumored that the lab had been conducting research into high-tech weapons that utilized magnetic or atmospheric energy. Warren and Freeman began their investigation by interviewing witnesses, including the Bickfords. It was noted by the locals that the two men appeared quiet and secretive, and only spoke to each other or took notes when alone and out of earshot, arousing suspicions. Rumors circulated that the Belle Island boom may have been the result of an errant electromagnetic weapons test conducted by either the U.S. or Soviet militaries. Furthering this claim was the implication that Los Alamos was tipped off to the incident by the space-based Vela satellite system designed to detect nuclear explosions around the world. Some locals believed that a secret atomic weapon that generated electromagnetic pulses may have been drawn to the island's dense iron content. Still, at least publicly, Warren and Freeman were merely scientists, Warren a plasma physicist and Freeman an expert in radio frequencies. It's claimed that both had been researching flashes sent back from the Vela satellites to track a particular kind of rare weather event called a superbolt. It is this research that led to the prevailing theory as to what caused the Belle Island boom. A superbolt, by definition, is an abnormally large and powerful bolt of lightning that lasts 5 times longer and is hundreds of times more powerful than regular lightning. Superbolts usually occur in the upper atmosphere, meaning their effects are rarely seen or felt on the ground. They also most frequently occur over open ocean and are believed to generate jets of plasma called sprites miles above the Earth's surface. When Warren and Freeman were made aware of the Belle Island boom, their leading theory was that it had been a rare instance of a superbolt occurring over dry land, and one powerful enough and low enough that its effects were seen and felt below. This theory might explain the strange behavior and destruction of electrical grids and equipment. It also makes sense that the beam of light seen by witnesses was the superbolt itself, touching down on the island. The lights and orbs seen in the sky remain difficult to account for, but may have been a result of the unusual atmospheric conditions needed to trigger such a rare event. For the amateur sleuths still seeking a definitive answer to the strange boom of 1978, the involvement of Warren and Freeman, the men in black, continues to cast shadows of doubt over the superbolt explanation. Yet it remains the most convincing and scientifically rigorous theory that has been offered up thus far. Hints of a secret EMP weapon haven't come to light even after the end of the Cold War, and neither the US or Soviet Union ever documented testing a top-secret black aircraft in the area that day. If it wasn't a bright crack of electricity that shattered Belle Island that strange day in 1978, then for now, we remain in the dark.